How is life in Malta?
Well, besides the fact that the pubs are closed and you need to wear a mask when you go out, besides that, things are pretty much normal. I mean, I have my studio at home, so I spend most of the time making music. Fact is that we're working on 3 albums. Leviathan is only the first album in a trilogy. See, we wrote over 40 songs that were good songs, and at least 34, 35 of these songs were good enough to be in a record, no doubt. So once we had finished the Leviathan recordings, we just kept recording. So we have already recorded guitar partly and the entire bass and drums for Leviathan 2. And since we won't be able to tour the first half of next year, we just figured we can finish the second album and even start recording the third album, so we won't lose any time. And you got something to do. And the songs have different directions, so we figured 1/3 of the songs were more in an immediate hit character, very bombastic and epic hit songs. So that's Leviathan 1. And then we also discovered that we had enough melancholic and dark songs to make a whole record like that. So Leviathan 2 will be much gloomier. If you like songs like Clavicula Nox, Draconian Trilogy, that type of more melancholic songs, then you probably like the second album more. The third album is a collection of what's left. Adventurous songs, experimental songs, more heavy songs, more progressive songs, and folky songs. I think we will give everybody what they want. Not everybody, but 90% of the fans will get what they want with at least either of these records.
Talking about Leviathan 1, is it true that you have deliberately packed it with Therion hit songs?
Well, after we did Beloved Antichrist, I felt very empty because that was my last big vision. That was my last dream of doing something. So I just thought, we did everything I wanted. What the fuck should we do now? But then I talked to Thomas about it, and we realized there's actually one thing that Therion never did. You see, every record we did what we wanted to do. We never listened to the record company. We never listened to the fans. We just made the album we wanted to do. And if we were lucky, people bought the record. The Therion record sales would always go up and down as a roller coaster because people preferred certain records and they didn't like. They liked some records more and they liked other records less. But we always did what we wanted. So the only thing we never did was try to please the audience intentionally. So we thought that's a great final challenge. Let's try to make a Therion classic sounding hit album. So we would try to not copy old songs, that would be cheap, but try to capture the spirit of the most popular songs and try to write new songs with that spirit. So the idea was to make songs to entertain people, for people to like them, rather than just writing something spontaneous. However, some of the songs we wrote were spontaneous, and that's why the Leviathan 3 will be more odd. But the whole Leviathan 1 are completely songs that are written intentionally to give people what they want for a change.
Which main themes are you exploring in the lyrics of the new album? I love the fact that you're using more than one language.
Well, it's like regular, different mythologies, different esoteric traditions from different cultures. It's a typical Therion album in that regard. You have, for instance, the Leaf of the Oak of Tar, which relates to the Celtic god Camulus. Well and the Tide is relating to the old Germanian goddess Nertus. You have Atsidahaka, I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but that's a Persian mythological character. You have El Primer Sol, which is a continuation of the song Quetzalcoatl we did, where this is really difficult to pronounce. Tezcatlipoca, I think. It's actually not so difficult to say it, but it looks weird when it's I can never remember it. He is the antagonist of Quetzalcoatl in the Aztec and Toltec mythology. So Dio is about the 10 stages in hell in Chinese mythology. So, yeah, typical Therion, I would say.
Yeah. And you did a video recently for the Die Wellen der Zeit with Carlos Toro, a long-time collaborator. And can you tell us something about the Richard Wagner influence in your music?
Well, Wagner has always been my reference for opera. Mm-hmm. I never liked Italian opera so much, to be honest. I mean, I respect it, but it's more, you know, if your girlfriend doesn't like opera, you can take her to the opera and watch some Puccini or something. Yeah. But for me personally, I was always into Wagner and Richard Strauss, which is very Wagner influenced. This is how I discovered opera, basically, and it was always my reference. When it comes to instrumental classical music, I actually prefer the Russian composers. But if you speak opera, for me, it's 90% Wagner. And I don't know why, it's just been that way. It's more dramatic, and it's more complex, and it's just something very epic over everything he did. Even if it's a very gentle, beautiful music, it's still some sort of drama. It's not entertainment, it's something more serious. Well, of course it is for entertainment, but I think Wagner was a very pompous personality. You know, he thought of his art as something more than simple entertainment. In the end, but I think his intention kind of mirrored something deeper in the music, which has not only appealed to me, apparently, because the entire film music industry is completely based on what Wagner did.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the leitmotif and so on. I personally agree, because I read Oper und Drama, and the concepts are there. It's an unbelievable book about his theories.
Yeah, and also he brought the symphonic orchestra into the opera house. Before, it was smaller orchestras, and they really had a background role, like, oh, the singers, they are the stars, and you just sit and play your stuff in the background. But with Wagner, the symphonic orchestra took place there, and the orchestra got a more prominent position in the music, with long musical passages and with these long overtures, you know, which are masterpieces in themselves. So he made a bit of a revolution in the way people were writing and thinking about music, just like Beethoven did in his time and Bach did in his time earlier. So that's music theory. I'm a very emotionally attached to music. I don't often analyze it that much, you know. I mean, because I became very fascinated by Wagner, I started also to read things about it, you know, the history about it, the music theory about it. But for me, I listen very much with the heart. You know. I never liked these composers like Schoenberg or something who make this 12-tone music or you know, too intellectual. You know, I want the emotions to be there, and I like equally much folk music as I like complex opera, or I can listen to very complex prog, or I can listen to very simple pop music. For me, it has the same value. It just plays different roles.
I see. I mean, from Schoenberg on, it's all about the very intellectual exercises.
Yeah, it was like Leif Segerstam, for instance, this conductor from Finland. I bought one of his symphonies, and you know, it's very interesting. If I listen to it, it feels interesting. But after I've listened to it, I don't remember anything. I could not remember one single melody.
Tell us something about the beautiful artwork of Leviathan Part 1.
Well, it's a very boring answer. I'm sorry, but we made an album called Leviathan, so there has to be some sort of sea dragon on the front side. So I told Thomas Immerhall, who made the front covers the last 20 years, make a Leviathan. That's it. So we just wanted a nice looking front cover.
Which memories do you have of Theli and the glorious 90s? I personally recall a great Italian gig with Amorphis back in '96.
Morphy, that was great. We toured with them in '96. Actually, it was a pretty tough tour for us because the band was great. They were really nice with us, but their tour manager was a fucking asshole. He did everything to fuck things up for us. But besides that, it was really, really great. Unfortunately, we were drinking quite excessively back then, but we were drunk most of the time. And when I've seen live shows with him back then, it didn't sound too good because everybody were drunk fuck-ups. But luckily for us, what we did was something new and unique, and the crowds were usually drunk as well, so we didn't notice. I think Tilly was the last album we did, and the last tour we did, where we still were kind of innocent. You know, when we did the Tilly tour, we still didn't have a tour manager. I would do it because we couldn't afford a tour manager, and we actually didn't really know what the tour manager did because we never had one. So once we would tour on the Woven album, we were a band who had figured everything out. We were confident, we were already successful, and we knew how everything worked. So that was kind of the beginning of the golden age for us. And also financially, because I bought my first car in 1997. And it costed me 760 euros. It wasn't euros back then, it was Deutschmark, but I bought it in Germany. And before that, I wouldn't have been able to afford a car, you know, not even an old piece of junk. Even had problems about food, you know, I had problems paying my bills. When I went on the subway, I had to travel illegally, you know, jump over the thing, you know, without a ticket, because I was constantly broke. So when we did the Woven album, it meant a great deal to have a financial security after all these years. And also musically, it meant everything to us, because you start selling records, you get better studio budget, so you can realize everything you want. That was always my problem before Tilly, that I would have great ideas, but would have a shit budget because we sold like shit, you know. And with Tilly, the record company took a chance on us. They gave us a huge budget, even though we sold no records. And that was our lucky thing. You know, I would always be very grateful to Mythology Goss for that. They believed in us. I mean, we had the highest budget on the record label, and we were one of the worst selling acts.
I remember back then I did an interview with Kimberley Goss.
Oh, it was a long time ago since I spoke to her. I think I haven't spoken to her in 20 years.
So, which final message and greeting would you send out to the Italian fans of Therion?
Well, these are difficult times. I have no idea how we're going to be able to tour. So I hope people will like the three Leviathan albums, and if things goes well, we'll be touring as well. But I have to point out, though, that the whole thing with touring is people think that, okay, once the restrictions are gone, the band can start touring again. But it's not really that simple, because you have a whole ecosystem around the touring band.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have the venues, the concert halls, and some of them, they will be bankrupt, you know, because somebody's having a club paying a rent, and so they will be bankrupt. So maybe your favorite rock club will be a gym or something when things are opening up again. Who knows? That's one thing. But you also have like tour bus companies. Yeah. I mean, if you have an old piece of shit tour bus, you can just oil it up, put it in the garage, hire your driver, and when things are over, you hire your driver again, or another driver. But for the more professional tour bus company, they may buy a double-decker tour bus for 50,000 euro and spend another 100,000 euro to turn it into a tour bus. So then it's a pretty big expense. And if this bus is not rolling all the time and generate cash, then they're not going to be able to pay the bank for the loan, because they don't have the kind of money to buy a bus, I guess. Especially not if you have a fleet of 10, 15 buses. So that means if your bus doesn't roll for 2 weeks, it's very bad. If it doesn't roll for 2 months, then it's a catastrophe. If it doesn't roll for half a year or longer, you may be bankrupt. Yeah. And crew, that's another thing. I mean, not every guitar tech is 20 years old and they were your mom and dad, you know. Like, you have people at my age, close to 50, you have kids, you have mortgage on your house, and you have bills to pay. So all the guitar techs, drum techs, light engineers, sound engineer, and so on. Many of them may have to get regular jobs, to pay the bills, to stay in their homes, to lose their house. And then when everything starts again, if they manage to get a good regular job, maybe they don't want to give up that job for something more insecure going live again. So it could be very hard to find a crew as well. And there are even more things like merchandising companies who sell 90% of their T-shirts to bands on tour that may not be able to pay the rent and need to sell the machines and close down. So maybe expect a big chaos. When this starts again, it won't just be, okay, restrictions are gone, things are back to normal. It will be years, many years from now, until things are how they used to be. So, in a way, thinking maybe it would be better not to tour so much when these things start, not to compete about the tour date, the buses and everything, and just take it easy and maybe release Leviathan 2 and start touring later when the dust has settled. But we'll see. Maybe we'll do a few dates, or maybe we go together with another band and do a big tour together, or we could even be an opening act for a bigger band, because then we don't have to worry so much about all that,